Hey guys, Will here with CreateStudio, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to recreate some of our scenes from our urban promo inside of CreateStudio Pro. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at what we're working with so we know what we're going to recreate. Alright, so let's break that down a little bit here. Our first scene that we're going to recreate is this fast text, right? And it's animating with 3 fast text above it and 3 fast text below. Alright, so we'll start working on that, and then soon after that, we've got a video image with the word amazing that flies in, it reconnects there, and then we got some black bars that come in, and then it kind of punches in, and then it jumps to some mass text, which we're going to recreate. All right, so let's go ahead and start from scratch here, and let's work on the word fast. All right, so up at the top, we've got the text, so let's open up a new text file here, and let's go ahead and double click on it, and let's call it fast, and go ahead and do that in all caps. All right. So our next step is to resize fast. So I'm going to select the text file, and then I'm going to come over here to our settings and go to scale, and let's go ahead and make it somewhere in the 200s, right? Kind of scale it up a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and immediately I'm going to add a motion animation. So I'm going to go over here to my motion, and I'm going to go ahead and do fade and go fade in. I'm going to check that box. All right, so if I go ahead and just play this back as is, fast just kind of fades in nicely there, but we're gonna go ahead and tweak it just a little bit. So with the fade in selected there, you'll see that you get some advanced settings here. We're gonna go ahead and click on letter, and then we're gonna change our letter offset, and we're gonna change it to 90. All right, so I can highlight that, I can type in 90 and hit enter, and then now when I play it back, you'll see that it just kind of letter offsets a little bit, but it types in there nicely. So that's looking pretty good. That's what we want. Now I'm going to right click on this text that we just created, and I'm going to group it. And then let's just call this, let's rename it, call it main text. All right. And now what we can do is we need to recreate the top portion of the text that comes up above fast, right? So let's go ahead and start working our way up, and then we'll work our way down. All right. So I'm just going to duplicate this and then tweak it as we go. So duplicate the main text. It goes right under it. And I'm going to call this, let's go ahead and just rename it off the bat. Let's call it upper text 1. All right. So now what I can do is I can double click inside of this upper text 1, and I can select my text file, and we're going to make some changes in here. All right. So first off, I need to go to my color, and we need to change it to black. Okay. So now you can't see anything right now, but the text is black. We're going to create a border. All right. So let's go down a little bit, and let's select our border, and then we're going to choose the color to be white. All right. And now we're going to change it so our width is 2. So once I do that, you'll see that the border pops in, and it's looking pretty cool. All right. So now I can come back over here, and we've already got our motion fade in. It's copied over from the other track that was there, right? So I guess already in the right spot, but I'm going to go ahead and change this so our offset is back to 50. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. And then I do want to make some adjustments. Both the opacity and the group opacity are going to stay 100%. Okay, so let's go back out to the main timeline here, and let's select upper text 1. All right, so as you can see, everything's right there, but we need to make upper text 1 move a little bit, right? Get into position. So let's go ahead and right click it, and let's go to add animation, and then let's go ahead and add a position on that guy. All right, so let's select our first keyframe in upper text 1, and let's go over here to properties. And so we need to adjust the X and Y of the upper text 1. And we can either do this by adjusting the slider or putting your mouse over the pixel icon there and left clicking and dragging, whichever way you want it to be. But I'm just gonna go ahead and punch in some numbers here. And for the first start, it's gonna be at 0, 0, right? So that's not the issue. We're gonna select the second keyframe, and we need to adjust it. So I want the position for X to be about 4, and then our Y position will be about -60. All right, so there is our first layer of fast. It's already above it. I'm gonna go ahead and move the set of keyframes so it starts about right here. All right, so looking pretty good, and that's kind of where we're going so far. All right, we can adjust this stuff as it goes, but for now, we're good. Let's go ahead and select upper text 1, and let's duplicate that guy. All right. So now I'm going to right click, and let's rename this to stay organized and call it upper text 2. All right. And it's going to pretty much stay the same, except the group opacity, if I select our group right here and go over to properties, the group opacity is going to go down to 50%. All right, so let's change that to 50. And then all we have to do is change the position, right? So let's select our first position on this guy and let's go to properties. And we're gonna go ahead and make this X position. Let's change it to 0. And then let's change our Y position and we're gonna go with -60 on that. All right. Now we'll select our second keyframe in upper text 2 and go back over here to properties. And we're gonna set it to end at, the X is gonna be set to 10. And then our Y will be set to -110. Okay. So now you can see it already popped out above and we're looking pretty good there. All right, so let's keep working our way down and let's do our upper text 3 now. So let's go ahead and with upper text 2 selected, go ahead and click on duplicate. And now let's go ahead and rename this so it says upper text 3. All right. So same thing, upper text 3 stays the same again, but our group opacity. So select your group of upper text 3, come over here to properties, and our opacity is going to change to 30. All right. And then of course, all we got to do is change the position for our upper text 3. So let's select our first keyframe in there for position, go to properties, and then let's change our X here to 0. And then our Y will turn into -60. And then we'll select our second keyframe here, our ending keyframe for upper text 3, go back to properties. And then on the X, we're going to change it to 30. All right. And then on the Y, we're going to change it to -160. All right. So now we're looking pretty good. So if we play this back, you'll see that we get our text that pops in there and it's looking pretty good. Okay. So, I'm going to adjust this guy a little bit, maybe just speed it up, the fade in on the original text, just so it's a little faster. All right. So now when we play that back, it kind of comes in nicely. And we can adjust these keyframes later for speed and for mobility of how we want the text to come up or how fast we want it to. But for now, let's get these things laid out and then we can adjust as we go later. All right, so now I want to start focusing on the lower part of the text. All right, so let's go ahead and duplicate upper text 3. So I'll select it and then click on duplicate. And then with that new duplicate it just created, I'll right click it, hit rename, and let's call it lower text 1. All right. So let's make sure that our opacity on the group is set to 100%. So I'll select the lower text 1, come over here to properties, and adjust the opacity to be 100%. All right, so it's set to 100, looking good. Now let's go ahead and set the position for lower text 1. So let's go ahead and select the first keyframe there. And I want that first keyframe on my lower text 1 to be set at 0. And then the Y position I want to be set at 0. All right, so looking pretty good so far. And let's select that second keyframe in lower text 1, go to properties, and we want the X to be 5, and then we want the Y to be 60. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. And so now we're looking pretty good. So let's just kind of scrub through and make sure that, so if something went wrong here, so let's go ahead and find out what happened. So on my lower text 1, let's select our first keyframe and go to properties, and it looks like my X and Y's didn't take. So let's go ahead and reset those back to 0 there. And let's see if that takes it right. So now we're looking good. Okay, so that's what we want. Now let's create lower text 2. Okay, so let's select lower text 1, click duplicate, and then we're gonna make some adjustments with the group opacity. So let's rename it first, sorry. Let's go ahead and make sure we call that lower text 2 so we don't get confused. And then with lower text 2 selected, select your properties and come over here to opacity, and you're gonna change that to 50%. All right. Now we can adjust the position for lower text 2. So select the first keyframe in lower text 2, and you're gonna come over here to your properties again. On your X, this is gonna be set to 0, and on your Y, it's gonna be set to 60. All right. Now let's go to the end keyframe on lower text 2, and we're gonna go to properties again, and your X is gonna be set to 10, and your Y is gonna be set to 110. All right. So now we've got those guys set up nicely. They're popping in, looking pretty good. And so now we just need to add in our third and final lower text 3. So let's duplicate lower text 2, So let's select it, hit duplicate, and then I'm gonna right click it and rename it and call it lower text 3. Okay, perfect. So now let's select the group here and let's go over to our properties because we're gonna need to adjust the group opacity on that guy. So let's go to our opacity here, it's at 50, let's change it to 30. And then now let's adjust the positioning for this guy. So select your first keyframe on lower text 3, go to properties, and we're gonna go ahead and set the position for our X and Y to be 0 for X, and then it's gonna be 60 for Y, all right? And then now if I click the second keyframe in lower text 3, go over to properties, we're gonna be at, X is gonna be at 30, and then Y is gonna be at 160. All right, so now we're looking pretty good. And if I play this back, you'll see that we got our text that pops in and it's looking pretty awesome. All right, so our next step is I'm gonna go ahead and group all of these together into one master group. All right, and the beauty of groups is that you can create things within them, and then you can animate everything inside of there as a whole instead of having to go in there and individually animate everything individually, which is awesome that you can do this, right? So let's go ahead and select all of your text here, right? Even from the main text all the way down to lower text 3. So I'll just make a box over all these, and then if you hold shift, you can select multiple ones too, and then just work your way down all the way to those guys. All right, so with all of them selected, right click on any of them and hit group. All right, so now what I can do is I can just call this, let's rename it and call them, this is our text group, right? All right, so that's looking good. Now what I can do is I can animate this just a little bit, right, to give it a little bit of motion. So what I can do is let's right click and let's add an animation and add position. All right, and so I can have it start at the beginning here to kind of give it a little bit more fluid motion. So it's all about those fine details, right? The little movements, the little things that kind of offset and really kind of help drive the image. It really works, right? So let's go ahead and select that first keyframe, and then let's make, let's go to properties, and let's make X 60, and then let's make Y can stay 0, and then we're gonna make sure that our ending keyframe there was selected, go to properties, it's zeroed out. All right, and I'll just do this one so it sets it nicely. All right, and then I can go ahead and just adjust this as it goes. So now when I play it back, it's got a little bit of movement and it's looking pretty good. So we can even pull and duplicate the music in just so you can kind of get a feel for what that looks like with the music. So let's go ahead and play that. All right, so looking pretty cool, right? So that's how you can kind of create that fast text animation. And again, you can spell out any word you want. Just a really cool feature, a way to enhance projects that you may have. All right, so let's go ahead and start on the next phase, which is gonna be this guy, right? So let's play this back so we can get a good idea of what we're working with here. So comes in here, video, and it's looking good. So we gotta get the video in there, and then we've gotta get the text, we've gotta get the black bars going, and then we'll get the zoom in there at the end, and then we've gotta mask our text. All right, so let's go ahead and move over to the side over here, and let's start kind of this fresh little scene that we're gonna work on. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead over to my media, and I've already got these files in here, so I'm gonna go ahead and drag in our video clip. I'll drag it into my canvas here. All right, perfect. And what I wanna do is let's go ahead and add some text now. All right, so let's go ahead and click on text, and let's type in the word amazing. All right, so we've got the word amazing, and let's go ahead and put this at the top here, line it all up. And with your amazing text selected, let's go ahead and adjust it and tweak it and make it a little bigger, right? So let's go ahead and come over here to our settings, and under scale, let's go ahead and scale it up to about 170, 180, that'll work. All right, and then from there, we're gonna have to add a little animation to it, right? So I'm gonna right click, add animation, and we're gonna do text spacing, right? So select that, and let's kind of move this over to the beginning here. And then let's select our first keyframe, and we're gonna go ahead and go down to spacing, and we're gonna set that to about 1,000. All right, so then you can see it spreads it apart. And then if I select that second keyframe, we're gonna end it on 10, which is kind of where it's at. All right, so if I play this back so far, you'll see there it goes, and it's doing what it's supposed to do. So it's pretty cool, right? This one's not super hard. It's just making sure you get the right keyframe settings and the right motions going, right? All right, so now I want to go ahead and start creating my shapes. All right, so let's go ahead and come up to the top, open up the shape properties, and then select a rectangle shape. All right, so once you got that made, go ahead and select it, and then come over here to settings, choose your color, and let's change that color and make it black. All right, and once you got that color black, go ahead and take the sides and expand them out past the canvas there, and that way they go extend out, and then we want to extend them up a little bit. All right, so let's go ahead and drag this down and just kind of set that right there. Now let's go ahead and duplicate that same shape that we just adjusted. So select that rounded rectangle, click on duplicate, and now we've got a secondary shape, right? So let's see which one's which here. That is our bottom, this will be our top. Okay, so let's go ahead and move this guy to the top here. And then let's go ahead and name this, rename it. Let's call it shape top. And then this one will be called shape bottom. All right, so now we can stay organized and we know what we're working with, what we're clicking on. So let's click on the shape top, and let's go ahead and right click it and then add animation and choose position. All right, so let's go ahead and select let's move our keyframes over to the left so it starts at the beginning here. Select your first keyframe, and then let's just drag it off the canvas so it's above the canvas completely. And then go ahead and select your second keyframe, and we're gonna set it so it stops about right there. Okay, now let's select our shape bottom. Let's right click it, add another animation, make sure it's positioned, and then let's drag it so it starts at the beginning of our clip here. And let's choose our first keyframe, and then let's go ahead and drag it so it starts off the canvas again. And then select our second keyframe, and let's choose where we want it to end. And we'll have it end about right there. All right, so now what we got when we play this back is that we've got the text, and it comes in, and then bam, it squeezes in. So it's looking pretty good, right? All right, so what we want to do now is let's go ahead and trim down our shapes to match the rest of our clips there. And now we want to create the text that's masked to the video clip, right? So to do that, what we got to do is let's go ahead and duplicate our text here. Let's go ahead and select our amazing text, duplicate it, and let's just drag it up here. Let me move up this video track again, and I'll just pull this guy right up here. Now I'm going to delete this animation, so go ahead and just right click on that keyframe, hit delete animation, and then select amazing, the text, to come over to your settings and come over to the spacing and just change it back to 10. That way it's just back to normal. All right, so now we can adjust the text and get it to mask the video clip of whatever our choosing may be, right? But we're gonna use the same video clip that we've been working with. So I'm gonna come over here to my media and then drag in our video clip back into my canvas. All right, so I'll go ahead and line these guys up, and then let's go ahead and trim our video clip so it's the same length as our text file here. Now what I need to do is I need to select both the video clip and the text file, and so I can mask them together. So you can do that in two ways. You can either left click the video clip and then hold shift and then left click your text file, or you can left click out here in your tracks and just left click and hold and drag a box around it. All right, so now that you got that, right click on them and then mask, and then that will go ahead and create the text mask that you're looking at, right? So it's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and line that up with the rest of our stuff here, and let's go ahead and create a group out of this mask that we made, right? So let's go ahead and right click this clip and click on group. It's just cleaner, it's neater, and it allows us to have more functionality and more options later, right, if we want to. So we can rename that group if we want to. We can call this text mask, right? Just so we know. All right, so now when I play this whole thing back, we've got the amazing text going, we've got our crop coming in, and then we've got our masked amazing text, right? So it's looking pretty good so far, but I do need to add a few more animations to a master group. So what I need to do is select everything right here in my timeline. So let's go ahead and just drag a box around these guys first, and then let's go ahead and hold shift and select on the last two clips there. And then now what I can do is I can right click and then hit group. All right, so now I've got everything inside of here. I can adjust inside this group. I can add animation, I can add some motion to it, and it will apply it to everything inside, which is why groups are so amazing. All right, so what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and add a motion animation to this group, right? So let's go ahead and select your group here, go over to motion, and we're gonna go and create a scale down motion animation here. So like you can see here, it comes in like this, and that's the effect that you get, that you see, right? So now what I can do is once the black bars come in and kind of crop in, I'm gonna go ahead and do a scale animation. So I can right click on the group, click add animation, and then click on scale. And what I can do is then click on my first keyframe, make sure it turns blue so you know it's selected, and then come over here to your properties, and under scale, I'm gonna go ahead and choose, it'll set to 100, right, which is already at, that's our starting point. Now I'm gonna go ahead and select my second keyframe, and I'm gonna change that under properties and make that 154 or so. All right, so now let's see if I get that in right. So she comes in, zooms, and then bam, we're looking good. All right, so now what we can do is we can kind of line this up with our text group over here. And what we can do here is, we can either regroup this, so it's just, we don't mess with the keyframes at all. So what I can do is I can right click this text group, and I can set group, and then go ahead and rename it. And this is our master text right here. And then this one will be, we can group this guy, and this one we'll rename it, and we'll call this one our, let's just give it a name real quick. We'll call this one our group amazing. How about that? Amazing group. All right. So now what I can do is I can overlap these guys, and then let's bring in the music a little bit. Let's just kind of drag it out too, so that way we can kind of get a feel for the track itself. So now we can play it. And so like maybe we want to speed this up, so let's not have it play so long. So let's kind of trim it down to there maybe, and then bring in our track here. So now, let's see. All right, so looking pretty cool, right? And of course you could tweak this as much as you want. And I do want to point out one more thing. So let's make a master group around our master text and our amazing group, right? So again, you can just select master text, hold shift and left click amazing group, or you can left click in your upper tracks here and just drag a box around both of them until both of them are highlighted blue. And now let's go ahead and right click one of them and then hit group. All right, so what this does is it just groups them both into one master group for us, right? Now, let's say for example, you want to change the word fast, right? Maybe you don't want to say fast anymore, maybe you want to say cool, right? So if you were to do this right now, you would have to change the word fast into cool for every single one of the text files you created, right? Now what we can do is with our group selected, our master group that we created, is we can come over here and there's this little gear icon right here on the bottom right in your settings, or below in your settings here. Open that up, and then you'll see that you're in the easy edit properties. Now what you can do is you can link your text files. These are all the text files we created here with fast. So you can link them all to this top one, right? So let's just go ahead and turn this checkbox on for all of the text files for fast, right? And they will all, whatever I do now to this one will adjust all of these guys below it. So if I come back here now and I can change the word fast to cool, you'll see that it changed all of my text files to cool now at the same time. So I don't have to go in there and manually do it one by one. And it'll work the same way with the word amazing, even your video files as well. All right, so that is how you can kind of go in there and even tweak it even further to make your editing life a little easier, and you can animate easier as well. So you can create some really cool animations inside of CreateStudio Pro. All right, so let's go ahead and change this back to fast, and just so I'm back to my old file here. And hopefully you got some really cool quick tips out of here. And I can't wait to see what y'all create, and I'll catch y'all in the next tutorial.